Part 1. In the world of Naruto, both shadow clones and shadow puppets are techniques used by ninja, but they serve different purposes and have distinct characteristics. Shadow clones, creation of clones. The shadow clone. Jutsu creates multiple physical copies of the user. These clones are tangible and can perform jutsu, engage in combat, and interact with the environment, just like the original distribution of chakra. The user's chakra is evenly distributed among the clones. This means that the more clones created, the less chakra each clone has, including the original user knowledge transfer. One of the key features of shadow clones is that when they are dispelled either by the user's command or by taking too much damage, their experiences and knowledge are transferred back to the original user. This makes it an incredibly useful technique for gathering information or training. Uses combat shadow clones can be used to overwhelm an opponent with numbers, confuse enemies, or perform coordinated attacks. Training Naruto famously uses shadow clones to accelerate his training, as he can create multiple clones to practice different techniques, simultaneously gaining the collective experience when they are dispelled. Diversion. The clones can also be used as decoys to distract or mislead enemies. Limitations. Chakra consumption. Since the user's chakra is split among the clones, creating too many can severely weaken the original user vulnerability. Although shadow clones can fight, they are more vulnerable than the original and can be dispelled with a single, strong attack. Shadow puppets, control of puppets. Shadow puppetry generally refers to a technique associated with puppet masters, particularly seen in characters like Kankuro. Puppet masters control lifeless puppets through chakra threads to perform actions in battle. No physical clone. Unlike shadow clones, shadow puppets are not physical duplicates of the user. They are objects typically constructed with weapons and traps that are manipulated by the user's chakra. Combat and traps. Shadow puppets are primarily used for combat, employing weapons, poisons, and traps built into them. They can be very versatile in battle, especially when controlled by a skilled user. Uses combat puppet masters use shadow puppets to fight from a distance, keeping themselves safe while their puppets engage the enemy. Traps and deception puppets can be rigged with traps, poisons, or other mechanisms to surprise and defeat opponents. Tactical advantage. The use of puppets allows the user to control the battlefield, setting up ambushes or distractions. Limitations. Dependency on the user shadow. Puppets require continuous control from the user through chakra threads. If the chakra threads are severed or the user is incapacitated, the puppets become useless. Complexity puppet control requires a high level of skill and concentration, and the puppets themselves can be complicated to manage in a chaotic battle environment. Similarities, strategic uses. Both shadow clones and shadow puppets can be used strategically in battle to confuse, overwhelm, or outmaneuver opponents. Extension of the user. Both techniques allow the user to extend their influence on the battlefield. Shadow clones by creating multiple versions of themselves, and shadow puppets by manipulating objects remotely. Element of deception. Both techniques can be used to deceive enemies, either by creating false targets, shadow clones, or setting up hidden traps, shadow puppets. Differences. Nature of the technique. Shadow clones are physical copies of the user, while shadow puppets are inanimate objects controlled by the user's chakra. Use. Shadow clones divide the user's chakra among the clones, while shadow puppets are controlled by chakra threads, with the puppets themselves not being alive or conscious. Knowledge transfer. Shadow clones can transfer their experiences back to the original user, which is a unique feature not shared by shadow puppets. Application. Shadow clones are versatile for both combat and non-combat tasks, like training, while shadow puppets are primarily combat tools, especially for puppet masters. In summary, while both shadow clones and shadow puppets are powerful techniques in Naruto, they serve different purposes and are used in different contexts, with shadow clones being more about replication and versatility, and shadow puppets focusing on tactical combat and control.